talk about the soldiers. You mentioned this a little earlier. You have a kind of like I was mentioning, Colonel George, he has a different perspective because he's the brigade commander, so he sees a bigger picture. Well, you do too. You're not in the military. Talk about the incredible job.
You know, I really can't say enough about our, uniformed men and women. I mean, it's just a privilege every day to serve with these folks. I mean, you've got everybody from, really some of the brightest thinkers that we have out in the government. People like, Colonel George, who's a pretty visionary leader. He really challenges a lot of assumptions. He takes a lot of risks that are really designed to protect our interests, to protect the soldiers. And he's willing to really stand up for what's right, consistently. Whether it's closing combat outposts that at this point in time aren't really aligned with where we are in our counterinsurgency strategy, whether it's using our commander's response funds for an innovative transparency initiative, this budget process that I talked about. So you've got folks like him, which really are just incredible, and then you've got soldiers down at the company level and the platoon level that are out there in some of the most austere conditions that you can imagine on these ridges, and you go in there and you see how much people care and how professional they are, and how they understand their piece of the fight, and the great lengths that people will do to take care of each other. In this command element, I'll never forget, one of the first nights that I was here, we were going up to a very dangerous outpost that, had been sort of briefly established, and, we were leaving at night, and it's very hot down here. It gets to be like 120 degrees, and you got the blades whipping up the heat, and you get a lot of dust, and I didn't know I hadn't ridden in open-door helicopters a lot. So, I wasn't really aware that you can get really pretty scuffed up, and I was in short-sleeve shirt, and the sergeant major grabbed me on the runway and said, "Hey, you don't have a long sleeve shirt," and he ran back and he got me the shirt, put it on me, and just looking out for somebody who's, and I was new. I mean, he probably didn't even know my name at that time, but he was looking out for me, and people do that here in an extraordinary way. And you've got people that are like our operations person, James McGahey. I mean, this guy is working, it's not an exaggeration to say 18 hours a day, consistently for a year, and often much longer, to make sure that, the troops have the assets that they need to back them up if there's a fight, to get them out of a tough situation. Our XO, our 3, these guys are working, around the clock to make sure that the supply chain, the logistical chain is moving. The pilots are, incredible, flying in, 10,000 foot peaks on either side, and some of the craziest terrain that you could possibly fly in, navigating these canalized, they call them canalized, valleys where you go in and the mountains are on either side. And then again, just the soldier who's out there. We got a guy in our Joint Visitors Bureau, Sergeant Bush. I mean, he's handled all sorts of distinguished visitors that have come through, whether it's Petraeus or the ambassador, just arranging all the logistics and things that you wouldn't even think about, but it's very significant in the visits because it allows these senior people to really concentrate on what matters. Somebody like Sergeant Bush can just, Sergeant Cervantes, these guys can make that happen, and people won't even know that, the cars were staged at the right time, the bags got to where they needed to go, the planes were directed to the right place, all kinds of things like that. So, just an incredible group of people, and like I say, a real privilege to serve with them.
Privilege to be here even for a short period of time. I've seen that the long hours they work. I'll see them in the early morning, I'll see them at night. So they seem to be well taken care of, though, in terms of the food and shelter. Of course, when you go out into the remote areas, I don't think I could do it. I mean, I come over here 3 weeks and I'm in pain with muscles, and they do this for a year, and the rocks. And it's remote out there.
Yeah, some of those remote ridges, you know, are beautiful and lethal territories. So, you know, they do get shot at, particularly in high season and fighting season, very consistently. You know, and again, the discipline, the professionalism that you see among these guys. I mean, you go out to any one of these posts, and you know, people really are taking care of themselves, taking care of each other, and yeah, they perform some incredible. You know, they're hiking up and down. You know, they'll go a couple thousand feet in altitude just on a foot patrol. You know, already at altitude with people shooting at you. You know, that's quite a challenge, and you know, but they're up for it. You know, amazingly, there's pretty high morale. You know, people really understand a little bit about why they're serving, and you know, I think they're really committed. I know our brigade, you know, had about a 140% re-enlistment rate, which, you know, when you really think about some of the trials that these guys have gone through, is you know, remarkable, and a real testament to both, you know, the leadership and the camaraderie among the troops.
From your vantage point, what would you say to the American people in terms of continuing to support our troops here, whether it's care packages, letters, or even helping the families back home?
Well, you know, I think anything that you know, folks can do, I know it means a lot to people. I do see the care packages come in. You know, for example, in our operations center, I mean, you've got soldiers around the clock that are really watching the progress on a whole number of things, and you know, they go through those care packages. You know, and you'll see soldiers in the offices. They'll have letters from school children up on their walls, and you know, it just means a tremendous amount. And you know, I think the difficult thing is, you know, I've seen it because my career is all overseas. You know, I've spent the last 8 years overseas. I get an opportunity to go back, and my wife is a Foreign Service officer, so as a nuclear family, we're together. But you know, the rotation of year on, year off, year on, year off. You know, I don't think anybody really anticipated that level. And when you really commit to a year away from your family, it's one thing when it's, you know, 1 year, maybe 2 years, but when you start to do it 5 out of 10 years or 4 out of 8 years, you know, that's a significant burden that families, you know, bear. And you know, anything that people do to support families back home that are going through the stress of, you know, having somebody not there, having somebody in a dangerous situation, I think you know, is really a great thing if people are supportive of those families. And I'm, you know, I know that you know, we certainly, you know, my family, when I'm over here, and my wife is you know, in school this year, but you know, every time, you know, people express support, I know they take it, they really appreciate it.
I always ask the soldiers if they want to give a shout out to family. You've been talking about your family. This will be on the internet, so people you know back home will be able to watch it. So you're welcome to say hello to some family and friends back home. Yeah,
well, I just want to say hello to everybody. I do miss everybody, and of course I miss and love my wife and our Ethiopian dog Bear. So you know, I look forward to seeing you in a couple months.
Well, I really appreciate what you're doing, and you know, I always say this: thank you for your service, and you are serving our country. So I want to thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us and talk with us.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Once again, folks, we're here on TalkingWithHeroes.com, reporting from Afghanistan. And remember the slogan I have: if you've watched some of the previous programs, watch and share. You've watched another video, help us get the word out about these videos. My goal, and a lot of others now are jumping on this, is that at least 1 million, for starters, of the American people will have an opportunity to watch these videos and basically see another side of the story from Afghanistan that most people in America have not seen. So I want to thank you all for helping. God bless you. God bless America. We'll be back with more from Afghanistan.